So, you survive a war, survive the loss of your brother, survive a family that's constantly testing the limits of dysfunctional, and then you land a scholarship to an elite all-white girls' school. Victory? No. Now you must survive a place where even brushing shoulders with a white girl could get you summoned to the headmistress's office, like you just punched the queen.
What fresh hell is this?
Welcome to Tambu's Life Part 2. And if you thought her first story, Nervous Conditions, was intense, well, this sequel comes armed with lost limbs, silent tears, racial landmines, and dreams that melt faster than margarine in a Zim heatwave. This is the Book of Not by Tsitsi Dangarembga. And I have some things to say. So here's the setup. Tambu, our young protagonist, arrives at Sacred Heart, a prestigious, colonial-style all-white girls' school, with the kind of big dreams only someone from a compound with pit latrines can dream. Education, she believes, is the key. The magic password, the golden escape rope that will pull her from the trap her mother is in, that kitchen-bound life of marriage and eternal silence. But immediately, two very real things snap her out of that fantasy. First, her sister Netsai loses a leg in the war for independence. Second, her proud and upright uncle Baba Mukuru is summoned by the Vana Mukoma, the freedom fighters, and accused of being a Mutangesi, a traitor, just because Tambu is at a white school. Colonial logic white education equals betrayal, even though his own daughter, Nyasha, isn't at a white school. And then, right at the gates of Sacred Heart, Tambu steps into the sanitized halls of racial hell.
Really? Tell me about them.
Now let me paint you the reality. Sacred Heart isn't a place of learning. It's a place of quiet terror for the few Black African girls allowed in. At assembly, they must stand carefully, like glass statues, making sure they don't touch the white girls. Not because it's rude, because it's a rule, a racial one. Tambu, who thought her biggest enemy was going to be calculus, quickly finds out that her real opponents are isolation, racism, war trauma, and her own imploding mental health.
I became a nervous wreck, she says, acting impulsively before feeling contrite afterwards.
She tries to focus in class, but her mind drifts. Sometimes to the distant sounds of gunfire, sometimes to the image of her sister's missing leg, other times to the silent scream of a future she's beginning to doubt. Then comes her attempt at therapy. Not your average journaling or breath work. No. Tambu begins secretly weaving clothes for the freedom fighters. And when her Black schoolmates find out, boom, the fragile camaraderie between them shatters. We're talking full-blown physical fights, cold shoulders, silent hostility. And yet she pushes on. Tambu wants to be something, somebody. She wants to succeed. She fights through depression, through loneliness, through the concrete wall of white favoritism and Black invisibility. And just when you think, okay, at least let her win this one tiny battle, she doesn't. She loses the Best O-Level Student Award. After 5 years of pain, effort, and top grades, the award goes to Tracy, a white girl. Why, according to Sister Emmanuel?
Tracy was an all-round student.
That moment breaks her. Tambu spirals, her grades fall, her motivation collapses. Her mind keeps replaying that one sentence, Tracy was an all-round student. And so begins the long, slow, painful descent from brilliance to burnout. Even when she eventually claws her way to university, it's not triumph, it's survival. And even then, at her graduation, no family comes. Not even Baba Mukuru, who by then is in a wheelchair after being hit by a stray bullet at the very independence celebration meant to free them all.
To the scars of war were added the complications of independence. Neither he nor any of my family came to campus to celebrate my graduation.
Later, Tambu takes a job as a scriptwriter. You hold your breath. Maybe this is the moment she shines again. But nope. Another colleague takes credit for her work. The company gets big contracts. Tambu gets nothing, no recognition, no thank you, just silence. So she resigns, with no backup plan, just emotional exhaustion and a suitcase full of crushed dreams.
Well, you did it. You took my one chance at happiness and crushed it. Crushed it into little tiny bite-sized pieces.
There's one line that sums up the emotional pulse of the novel.
As I went on planning my life, life was planning an insurgence.
This isn't just a witty line, it's a life truth for Tambu, for Zimbabwe, for every person who thinks dreams alone are enough to escape systemic injustice.
Why did this have to happen?
So what's the Book of Not really about? Well, it's about the making, and honestly the unmaking, of a nation. From Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, from colonial rule to independence, from clear villains, the colonizers, to these unclear disappointments, our own people in power. It's about the cost of independence, not just in blood, but in souls. The war took Netsai's leg, the celebration took Baba Mukuru's spine, and in a painfully symbolic twist, those who fought the hardest gained the least, while opportunists rose from the ashes to occupy power.
The rise of the parvenu is always followed by putrefaction, moral and economic.
Tambu's personal journey, it kind of mirrors the country's journey. Dreams of liberation curdle into bitter disappointment. What she wanted was freedom. What she got was marginalization, gaslighting, and, well, soul rot. The novel also dives deep into questions that plague many post-colonial minds. Did people really die to gain freedom? Or did the leaders just negotiate when it became convenient?
I could never bring myself to believe Rhodesians had died. Definitely, they had not done so in sufficient quantities to cause a great blimp in the course of history.
Tambu begins to doubt everything, even the point of the war. That might sound blasphemous, but it's honest. And it's a theme that echoes through post-colonial African literature. This uneasy feeling that maybe, just maybe, freedom didn't come with a future. Reading the Book of Not is like being handed a bitter cup of tea. At first you think, tea, then you taste it and realize, this is medicine, necessary but not sweet. At times the narrative gets heavy and overly refined. There are places where the writing loses the rawness we felt in nervous conditions and instead becomes detached. That might reflect Tambu's emotional dissociation, but it does make parts of the novel a bit tedious. There are timeline gaps too, especially during her A-level years. Dangarembga shows us a lot of Tambu's O-level journey, then speeds through the later years, which feel underdeveloped in comparison. But none of that takes away from the emotional weight and historical importance of the book. And perhaps the most painful part? Tambu doesn't win, not in the traditional sense. She doesn't rise, she doesn't triumph, but she endures. And sometimes that's more powerful.
Life's not fair, is it?
Tsitsi Dangarembga is one of Zimbabwe's most important literary voices. Born in 1959 in Mutoko, she's a novelist, filmmaker, and activist. Her first novel, Nervous Conditions, published in 1988, was the first published in English by a Black Zimbabwean woman and remains a staple in African literature. The Book of Not, published in 2006, is the second in a trilogy that closes with This Mournable Body, released in 2018, which was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Across all three novels, Dangarembga charts the life of Tambudzai, a mirror for Zimbabwe's hopes, pains, and post-colonial identity crisis. Dangarembga herself has not just written about politics, she's lived them. She was arrested in 2020 during peaceful protests in Harare, proving that she's as fearless as the characters she writes. So if you're looking for a hopeful story, keep walking. But if you want a brutally honest, piercing, emotionally intelligent exploration of what happens when dreams meet reality, then the Book of Not is your book. Just be warned, it's not a story of happy endings, it's a story of truths. Ugly, necessary truths. And sometimes, those are the most important ones. Let me know in the comments. Have you read it? And did it wreck you too? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more raw African literature reviews like this. Until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and beware of awards you deserve but don't receive. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.